Good afternoon and welcome to yet another edition of our educative show dubbed Land Matters. Indeed, it's a show that seeks to educate you on all the land-related issues, ranging from how to acquire, manage and register your land in the country. And today, we are privileged to be joined by a man who understands land administration in the country. So we're saying that, yes, the Greater Accra is indeed bedeviled with too many land litigations. Would want to throw more light on his role and what he thinks are the reasons for this saying or this assertion. And so, wonderful viewers, today we are joined by the acting Greater Accra Regional Lands Officer, Surveyor Lawyer Timothy Anyidoho. Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so indeed, it's a great pleasure to have you here speaking to all of these issues that people have so much interest in. And so to begin with, we want to understand your role as the Regional Lands Officer, Greater Accra Regional Lands Officer. What exactly do you do? Can you help us?
Okay, so thank you very much. Greater Accra region is one of the 16 regions in the country. If you look at the provisions of the Constitution, the Lands Commission would have a regional office in every region. So the Regional Lands Officer is the senior most officer in that region. So I'm privileged to be acting at the moment for Greater Accra, where principally you are the one in charge of Lands Commission's responsibilities in Greater Accra. That involves the coordination of the 4 divisions under the Commission and to ensure that all that pertains to administration in the region goes well. So basically that will be what my responsibilities are.
That should be a very big one, of course. And of course, let's say a very Herculean task, looking at your region.
Yes.
So what are some of the issues regarding land administration in this particular region? Because I know Greater Accra is a very hot one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Greater Accra, we all know, is the capital city. And the privileged position of the capital city means that it's going to have its peculiar challenges. I always tell people that land is most pricey in Greater Accra. Almost all government business begins in Greater Accra. So you have people drifting a lot into the Greater Accra. That alone brings with it its pressures. In fact, at the last population census, we have over 5 million people in the Greater Accra region. That is far more than any other region, even though the land mass of Greater Accra is small. What is the net effect? You have the fact that the little land, if I put the little land, the smaller aggregation of land in Greater Accra will now suffer pressures from a larger number of people. That leads you into a phenomenon such as landguardism because of the hassle and the heckle for land. If you go to other regions, you hardly hear things like this because you have fewer people, you have
So is it really safe at all to go into any land transaction here in the region?
It is safe and you must, since it is the capital city. I always say if you get the process of acquisition right, you always would get yourself out of trouble.
Do you really have land in Accra at all?
Yes, we do.
We do?
So people always say the land in Accra is finished.
Asa.
But that is not the case. Every day we are registering. What I will say is that Accra, that we knew it to be, is expanding to the peri-urban, the fringes of Accra. So now when you define Accra, you are going all the way to the fringes of the adjoining regions. So
Okay,
yes,
like...
like you. So you know we border with Volta region on one side, we have Eastern on the other side, we have Central on the other side, unfortunately the seas on the other side.
So they all see themselves.
So whichever extent to which you go. And of course, people who own land are always trading with it. So even in the developed places, people are still acquiring every day because people are trading, investing, building, selling. So yes, we have one.
I met a woman who once said, Eunice, you know what, it's not safe at all to now have anything to do with land transactions in the region. And so if you want to really speak to the issues, if you want to tell people what it takes to even acquire land, the right processes to want to go through to acquire and manage and register the land, I think our viewers would really appreciate, because you did mention that people sometimes ignore some of these processes, and that's how come they find themselves in big problems later on. So as the Greater Accra Regional Lands Officer, I'm sure you may want to throw a caution out to our viewers. I mean, what exactly should one do in the region if you find yourself in the Greater Accra? Because I understand in the Greater Accra, we do title registration. And so I want to start from the basic things to do. Well, so I have identified a parcel of land. I want to go into a lease agreement or something. How do I even start so that I don't encounter any problem on my way?
Okay, so just to explain, you mentioned in your statement how in Greater Accra we do title registration. Let me just explain what we do in Greater Accra. Truly, we do title registration in Greater Accra. And we always say that because in most of the other regions, at least 14 and a half regions, they do deeds registration. Greater Accra was privileged in 1986 when they passed the PNDC law 186, which is the land title registration law. Gradually, Greater Accra, up to about 2006, where the whole of Greater Accra was declared, was piloting title registration in bits and fits. But by 2006, the entire region was declared. So I can say that it's the only region.
So prior to 2006, what system was it?
So we're doing title registration in the areas that were declared. And we're doing this registration in the areas that were not declared as title registration. Because this registration was the old form of registration until the passage of the PNDC law 186.
So you had the dual system.
The dual system until sometime in 2006. When the whole of Greater Accra was declared a title. And that stays the only region with title registration in the entire region. All the other regions and parts of Ashanti region and some pilot areas in Central, they do this registration.
So when you say title registration, what exactly are you talking about?
I wanted to bring that explanation so that we can put it in context.
Sure.
The deeds registration system is where registration is of the transaction between the two parties. So I've entered a transaction with Eunice, she's giving me a land, and we are registering that document. But
my 4 copies of indenture?
Yes, your indenture, what you call the deed. However, when we talk about title registration, it goes to the registration of the parcel of land. So that's the main difference. Title registration, the title registration is going to the root of the parcel of land, which is the land proper. So that parcel is registered. So whoever owns it, it continues to change. It may change, you may split the parcel into 2, you may divide, but this registration, it didn't go to the registration of the land per se. It was a transaction between the parties. That is what it is. And these are things that you remember in 1996, when we were doing this economic recovery program and all that, the development partners thought title registration was the way to go. So that we could guarantee title. For title registration, there's a state guarantee that backs it. And therefore, if it's registered and all things are done and something happens to your interest, you'll be entitled to compensation from the state. So title registration was a new way to go. But it has been piloted. We always say it's the longest pilot since 1986 till now. Maybe because we chose the most complex of the regions, which is Greater Accra. So I think bits by bits, we want to perfect it before we introduce it in other regions. So as I say, I'm privileged to be in the only region where title registration is 100% what you register.
So, let me take you back to the process. I mean, you were trying to throw more light on what one needs to do.
So Greater Accra, like all other regions, you see a parcel of land. So Mr. Anum or AJ has seen a parcel of land. That's beautiful, I want to buy it. What should you do? The site plan will be the first document you would ask for. And this site plan, most people who have dealt with land would know what we are talking about. It will be a piece of paper with some drawings with a marking of that exact parcel of land on it, with what we call the grid lines. These are produced by the geomatic engineers. Those we popularly call the surveyors. So these are the geomatic engineers. Then that becomes a basis of running a search. So we are in Greater Accra. We are decentralized. We have an office in Greater Accra. So you bring the site plan and you submit for a search. That search is supposed to give you information on whatever the title in respect of that particular parcel of land is in our records since the creation of man. So you may get certain results. One, there may be no recorded transaction from the time this land has been. You may come and find transactions. Maybe Mr. A gave it to this, B gave it to this. You may also find out that it's state land. You may find out that it's vested land, which is a species of public land. You may find out that it's for some stool or some family or some individual. So those are the things that the search is supposed to help you. And the search must precede your going ahead to discuss any negotiations on the parcel of land. Unfortunately, Accra, and maybe not only in Accra, most people will do this search after they have completed the transaction. And that is where the problems begin. So they bring their documents for registration, and they are now being told you can't proceed because it's state land. The state didn't give it to you. It's for Mr. AJ, who registered in 1986. So I don't know any Mr. AJ on the land. The person who gave it to me is Mr. Pia. We said, no, our records indicate that Mr. AJ registered in 1986 or 1941 or 2016. Then it becomes a problem. We said, go and come, we'll come and inspect. So to get it right is to make sure that the search at the beginning is done right. Once you get to know what the results are, then you can proceed.
Maybe I need to take you back before we proceed from here. We would want to understand the ownership types and the region. What are the kinds, for want of better word, what are the types of ownership?
Okay, so the region, like all other regions, has multiplicity of ownerships. So we have public land, which can be split into two. You have vested land and then state land. Vested land is land that government has, stool land. It's mostly the species of stool land that government has declared as vested, meaning that government controls the legal title and the beneficiary title is in the name. So I can mention, because it's specific to Greater Accra, we have some in Osu, we have some along the Pram Dawenya area. We have some species of vested land there. Then we have purely state land. This is land that government has acquired, and therefore state has the absolute interest. Here, the state manages it, the beneficiary interest is state, and then it proceeds that way. So
the state would have acquired from
whichever stool family or any person who owned it, and that will make it state land. We can mention airport residential area, we can kind of East Legon, North Legon, we can Kanda. We have the seat of government, for instance. We have land that government has acquired for the sole purpose of some public interest.
So if I want to get the difference between the vested and the state, what would be the clear distinction?
Government manages it.
With the vested land.
Yeah, but the beneficiary, so the rents and what accrues from it goes to the beneficiaries too. So it's not an absolute acquisition. The interests of those persons are subsumed by government interest. And then you can talk about the state land where government has absolutely acquired.
And compensations have been paid?
Yes, but not in all cases have compensation be paid. If you know the acquisition process, when government passes what we call the executive instrument, all rights are extinguished. So the only interest that's the beneficiary ownership.
So when you say all rights are extinguished,
whichever ownership that you have, it was for your family, it was for your stool, it was for your father, all you need to do is go and claim for compensation. That's the only claim that you have. And we have to make this absolutely clear. What happens is that when government doesn't develop the land, people quickly go and say, government has not developed it, so it has returned. I've recently received a very interesting letter where some family, I won't mention the name, has written through his lawyers to us that government's interest in acquiring some prime lands in Accra has expired. And therefore, they are giving us notice that in 10 years' time, it becomes theirs, which is not the case. Because government has acquired absolutely. It was not acquired for a specific time. It was acquired absolutely.
So all government acquisitions.
So you are taking me to slippery ground. Most of government acquisitions, if it is state acquired, it is that. We have found in pockets where state owned by what we call the leasehold ordinance. So the state acquired it for a number of years. That's very rare in very few areas. Where under the law that they acquired it for, government acquired an interest for a number of years, what we call a state land ordinance. But that's been very
That's not so common.
Very rare.
Yeah, it's not so common. So we have the vested, we have the state land.
For public land.
public lands.
Then now we go to the other species, which is the
Right.
customary land ownership. In Greater Accra, we have schools owning, we have families owning, we have individuals, of course, companies, various entities own land. So that's what we have in Greater Accra.
Right.
Unlike other regions, I can set examples. Where in Ashanti, for instance, where it's homogeneous, it looks like it is stool all over.
Okay.
In Greater Accra, we have a blend.
Wow.
We can't say there's a balance, but there's a blend. Families own land here, quite a sizable proportion. Stools own quite a sizable proportion. Individuals, through various means, have acquired.
Okay. So with all these ownership types, they all start with conducting a search.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please. That is what will aid you know who owns what and whether the person who is giving to you has the right to.
So you identify the parcel, you request a plan from the landowner.
Yes, from the landowner. He should be able to have it. So we always set examples. If you are selling your shirt, for instance, if I ask you that I want a verification whether that shirt is okay, you should be able to give it to me to examine here. So the site plan is done. What traditionally happens here is that the landowners don't want to invest in doing the site plan. So upon your approach to them, they can say, we are taking X amounts to get a surveyor to prepare the plan for you. But, well, it's all processes by which you can get your site plan properly.
Yeah, so after you've conducted your search and maybe your search report reveals as maybe a family land, maybe it belongs to Bawekwate family, what happens?
So then you would have to do two things. One we call the informal checks. You go also onto the land to just feel the ground. Many people have abandoned even when the search says it is for this family. And you are going to the land and you find a bit of young men chasing you up and down. Or you find somebody having built some structure on the land. It's all red herrings. It's possible that they sold the land to somebody. The person has not registered, but is in occupation of that land.
Even when your search report
shows that it's okay to go by.
Okay.
So as we're saying, Lands Commission registers what has been brought to us for registration. So we always throw that caution out there. The records of the Lands Commission cannot confirm those who have not come to the commission to register, or those who by some form of exercise Lands Commission hasn't registered.
Okay.
So let's throw that caution. That is why I often say the step of going to the land is very important.
Okay.
Because you may have your paper and just be buying litigation.
Wow.
So you go to the ground, you feel the ground. I always say when you go there, there may be some abandoned foundation. You want to be sure that all may be telltale signs. The land may have been walled. You find some young men in there. They may give you advice whether to proceed or not to proceed. Sometimes when you go there, they are all welcoming. Oh, we know it's for the Bawekwate family. As you set an example. Then you now go and look for, because if it's family land, then the grantor is the family head, along with his principal members of the family. So you have to now pursue that family and look for the family head. You know, usually you have maybe people running around it, but I always say cautiously you have to look for who the.
So it's always important for one to visit the site and do your checks as well. Even if your search is positive, you have to be there physically to check who is in possession, whether you'll be approached by people who would also lay claims to the same land or something. Yeah. So if it is this simple, then why do we have that many problems?
So, as I said, in Accra, the population pressure would mean that many people are in a hurry to acquire, and land in Accra is pricey. So those who are selling it. So just a few reasons why Accra has all these peculiar problems.
Yeah.
One is the fact that all these interests I've told you, we don't have defined boundaries for these interests. So I cannot have a map of Accra now and tell you the Darkway family, our family owns this exact parcel of land in Accra. Because the customary landholders have not sought to register their claims.
Okay.
So their bloodlines, some of these boundaries were done by trees, rivers that have dried up over time. There's some cure in it in the New Land Act, which we will discuss, I'm sure, going forward. But that's one of the reasons. So once I don't know the exact boundary I have, and you don't know the exact boundary you have, that would mean that I may be straying into an area that you believe is yours. You may also be straying into an area that I believe is
So that's one of the problems we
That's
have.
one of the basic problems. Secondly, is what I call just pure dishonesty. And people trying to make money off where they. So they sold the land to Mr. A. Whilst he's not developed it, they're seeking to scheme it and sell to somebody else.
Maybe after some years,
After
when
some
they
years.
see no
Some
activity
even
going on.
at the same time that they are dealing with you, they are seeking to deal with some other persons. And again, a question or something that I found very interesting about land. The two parties seem to spend a lot of energy fighting each other and not going back to the grantor who gave them the land and they are fighting over.
Yeah.
Because people are consumed by the fact that I want this particular parcel of land. My grantor, I would have a relationship with him going forward. So I don't want to embarrass him or make him look bad. But that often also stretches litigation that also leads to a lot of problems. It's important that once people go, you are going to buy something.
Yeah.
Somebody else has come and claimed that that person has sold it to him. Isn't it good that both of you go back? But most people end up spending their energies fighting each other.
Fighting. And for years,
we'll
be litigating.
And the person who sold it will pass. Now you don't even have, you are still fighting over the same land and you are wasting investments and all that. So that's one of the things. And as I said, Greater Accra may have the greatest fear of land grabbism because people are trying to use brute force to protect what they believe is theirs or to disrupt other people's ownership. And because land is pricey, in fact, when you go to other regions, the cost of putting people like this on the land is even more than the cost of the land, isn't it?
I can imagine.
So why do you invest in things like that? But Accra, land is pricey. So people think that by going this way, they can protect their interest in land. So.
Okay, so lawyer, let me find out exactly what it should be after maybe your search proves, positive. It's okay. It reveals the name of the landowner, and then you go see the family. They prepare an indenture for you. You have your 4 copies of the indenture. Where do I go to? Where do I start from?
So having agreed, the parties have agreed. You've looked at the land. You think that was something I want to go on. Then you are going back to talk about price.
Okay.
So I have X amount of money. Am I selling it for that amount? We have agreed. We may have terms by which I can pay you. Then you move on to the process of preparing the documentation. Okay. You suggest that it's the family that prepares, but the law says it has to be by a solicitor or a lawyer. Okay. So that there will be some lawyer or solicitor acting for that family. So they will prepare. Then what you call the indenture, which is the deed, which is just the contract governing. So is there a copy? So typically, this is just a type of it. Typically, to be something like this, a document from some. So basically, this contains the various clauses that would govern your occupation of the land for a number of years if it is done by leasehold. So it will have the parties. If it's a family, as you see, ex-royal family or this acting by his family head and his principal members. If it's a stool, it will be so and so and so, the stool occupant acting with his principal elders. If it's an individual, so it can be me acting. So it's me. I'm just giving you something, and then you proceed, and whoever you are doing it with, it will contain the price, the number of years you have given it to you if it's by leasehold. And then certain conditions, what you should use the land for.
All of these are in the indenture.
All of these are in the indenture, and we always say people just pick this up.
Trust me, most people don't even understand what is in there. Yeah.
So it's a legal document. It's just like a contract that will govern sale of some goods or a car or something. It's a similar thing. So it has clauses, it has conditions, it has a lot of things that are in there. Then the parties will sign. Okay. And embedded in it would be a site plan, of course. Site plan, which is talking about the parcel, something similar to
So it has the locality,
it
has the acreage, a sign. So what type of plan is this? Because most people say if you are in the Greater Accra, you have to prepare what we call the barcoded plan.
Yes. So this is an example of it. So you see there are 2 signatures at there. Okay. At the bottom is the licensing surveyor who you would engage. And the bottom is the representative of the director of SMD, Survey and Map Education. His representative The barcode is an introduction that was done in 2015 to allow the Lands Commission to have soft copies of these plans so that when it comes to registration, to be easy for the Lands Commission to retrieve. Either in Greater Accra, you would submit a plan. Then in your registration process, the Survey and Mapping Division will go back to the site to affirm that same
which can be so laborious.
Which became laborious, cost-wise, was putting pressure on people and was making the registration process a bit lengthy. So in 2015, the Lands Commission sort of sought to reverse that challenge. So now the barcoded plan will mean a copy of the plan is lodged with us at the time of preparation. That doesn't mean you've registered anything. That just means that a plan has been prepared. So when the parties sign, then
it's good you mentioned that, because I've heard a number of people even say that, oh, I've prepared my barcoded plan, so I've blocked the area. Nobody can go and register. So
that is not it. When you do that, there's no blocking that happens. And 10 people can come from that same plan.
Exactly.
To be reproduced for them. At this stage, you are just producing plan as many times as that plan is needed for registration, to do a search, to any form of activity, it should be done. It is only when you've gone through the registration process and ended the registration process that I can say that plan now becomes an instrument registered. Based on
so, lawyer, we have our documents signed. Where do we go to? Do we bring all the 4 copies to the commission?
Yes, so at that time you go to the High Court for
the High Court,
an oath of proof. So that you have to prove the document. That will be done. If that is done, then you come to the Land Valuation Division of the Lands Commission to do what we call the stamp duty. And the stamp duty relates to, it's a tax on the transaction. And at this time, I want to caution those who have these indentures in their house. If you've not done any registration at all, at least you should be able to do the stamp duty. Because if a court matter arises, the courts have agreed that if you've not stamped the document, the court even will recognize or take the document in evidence. Yes, it's to encourage people to pay their taxes. And then, so find
it doesn't become legit.
At a stamp duty stage, you have paid a tax on that transaction. We have still not registered yet. You have just paid a duty on the transaction. And then before you now move into the registration mode, which will be...
so from court, then I come to the Lands Commission.
The
stamp duty. And then where I pay my VAT, and then I later...
It is, you pay your duty.
Your duty.
It is not VAT.
It is not VAT.
No, it's not VAT. Stamp duty is a tax on the transaction, but that's under value-added tax. And the land
that goes to GRA.
Yes, that goes to GRA.
So we're going for a break. When we come back, we would ask you to send in your questions. Lawyer is here with us. He hasn't left us. We would want you to bring in all your concerns regarding land acquisition, management, and registration in the country, specifically the Greater Accra region. So today we are speaking to the issues regarding land registration in the region. Thank you for watching. The show is Land Matters. We'll be right back. Are you wondering why so many people have issues concerning registering their lands, or why the issue of land litigations have always been on the ascendancy? Because so many people have failed to do what we call due diligence. Buying a land, as we always say, is not like buying a common commodity on the market. One needs to invest a lot of time and money into the whole process. Getting to know who actually is the rightful owner of a particular parcel of land in the country takes a bit of time and money. To conduct a search to ascertain who owns this parcel of land, it means one would have to run to the Lands Commission to receive that kind of information to make an informed decision on as to whether to go into any land transaction or not. We have put a team together to help you appreciate this whole process of acquiring land and registering land in the country. Follow us, and then we'll give you more insight into how to acquire and register your land in Ghana. Facebook at LanscomGH, on Twitter at LanscomGH, and on Instagram at LanscomGH. So welcome back. Thank you so very much for watching. The show is Land Matters. Indeed, you know, land is everything for us. I hear people say that if you want to prove that you've actually achieved something in life, you ought to show where your land is, and even location even matters. And so if this means a lot to us, it tells you that we need to do all the due diligence. We need to understand what it takes to acquire land properly in the country. And today, our focus is on the Greater Accra region. So we still have lawyer Timothy Anyidoho, who is the acting regional lands officer for the region, with us, trying to take us through the registration process. I know there are peculiarities. We want to understand the dynamics. We've spoken to about 2 or 3 regional lands officers outside the Greater Accra region. And today, our focus is on the Greater Accra region, where a lot of people even fear to enter into land transactions. People don't want to go inside at all. They don't want to go close to any land in the region because of the many problems. People have litigated for decades. Others have lost their lives because they did not do the right thing. A lot of people are having copies of their indentures with them and keep saying that they have registered their interest with the Lands Commission. Today, we want to demystify all these views, assertions that people have. And so, lawyer will be speaking to all the issues. Don't go away. The show is still Land Matters. So, welcome back, lawyer. So we were at the point where you stated that after you have been to the court, you come to the Lands Commission, you lodge your documents for stamp duty, assessment and payment. After that, what next?
So you would have then stamped your document and would have met the basic requirement for registration now. Because parties have executed, you've done the oath, you've signed, you've done the stamp duty. Then you submit your document for registration. Now, I'm going where I think you'll go next, which is the time for registration. It's at this point that people assume that once he puts in the document is just going to come out as registered.
Sure.
But there are internal processes that we must go through. A typical land that is family land, which is not stool, you submit it for title registration. Then the commission will look through its records to be sure that this parcel is being given by the right person. That is why, here again, the search becomes very important. If you have done the search before, then at this stage, you're expecting a similar results as you got at the beginning. Unfortunately, I can hazard a guess, but most of the documents that come here, the search will not have been done. So at this stage, we are going to now review the document that you brought. We do a search, it affects a transaction. You are informed whether we can continue, whether we can't continue, we may need to go for an inspection. Then, assuming everything is fine, then the commission now opens its file, writes to the survey and mapping division for them to prepare a plan that's the base for registration. It may either be a parcel plan or it may be a cadastral. Yes. So that will be prepared. Then it goes back to the survey to the land registration division again. Now your plan is ready. The law requires that a publication is done. So the commission then publishes it. Mostly it's in the Spectator. Some special publications are done in the Daily Graphic or the Times. But you need to give notice, 14-day notice. Just to give notice to the whole world that you are registering. And then if that all works out well, then it goes to the stage of preparing the certificate. Then it goes through.
That sounds quite simple.
Yes, but anytime you say this, the reason why people are cynical about it is that people might say they've been here for 7 years.
Exactly.
8 years, some 10 years. But they are not telling you what the real challenges is. And I'll set a current example. I have a senior colleague, surveyor colleague, who doesn't work with us, who had complained bitterly to me that his registration had taken close to 8 years. That it had gone through every single person he knows, and still the thing was pending. So I asked for the file. Now, this land he was acquiring was a land that government had the intention to acquire for a landfill site sometime in the 90s. So in the process of registration, Lands Commission wrote to him that until government is clear about its intentions, we cannot continue the process of registration. So if he had done the search,
but that was communicated to him.
This was communicated to him, but yet the story sounds very nice. But the Lands Commission again, so I always say, when people say the stories of delay, the first question I ask is, why is it delaying?
Yeah.
They may be, we've had documents, some affect somebody's interest. They say go and check with that person, and the person is still standing where he's standing. Because mind you, those of us who work here work with protocols. So obviously you cannot keep somebody's document for years just for no reason. So I just want to assure the general public that if we do the right things at the beginning, when you come in, you may not spend so long as you presume. Now, this time of delaying is what influenced in the preparation of the Land Act, a provision that registration should take within 90 days.
90 days.
The person should be informed whether we can proceed with the registration or not.
Not to complete it.
No, not to complete it.
Oh.
But that is a very critical part for people, because if this man had been told many years ago
but hey,
that
this is what it is, so we can't
register, he would have packed his bag and baggage and gone. But we had a practice of always keeping documents and attempting to resolve problems that were not our making, which were making of individuals. We could be registering and get a notice of an injunction in that process. If the court orders an injunction, what can we do? As long as the matter stays in court, we cannot register land in that area. But the person may have submitted for registration. The delay in our process is, yes, some are the inefficiencies of our system, which we have been working on. Mind you, Greater Accra has the greatest volume of documents for registration.
Yeah.
So the pressure on staff is not the same as you may find in other regions.
Yeah.
Because people need it registered for mortgages, for that, people are doing transactions. It's the busiest land market we have in the country. So the pressure is always on.
So, lawyer, you're saying that within 90 days, the Lands Commission is supposed to communicate to the applicant
yes, that is by law. Whether the document is registrable
or not. Okay.
Or registrable.
Now, so when we want to find out how many months it actually takes to register it, yes. Does the law also make...
No, the law in trying to cure the endless, the lack of time, in its wisdom, looked at as informing. So, for instance, if you inform me that it is registrable, obviously then you would have done some substantial checks before doing so.
Okay.
So it may not be long after that, maybe 2 months, 3 months, whatever.
You may have advanced and that.
You can only advance to be able to tell me whether you can.
Sure.
Go. So it has put pressure for people, for the work to be done in such a way that you can proceed. We always say this with caution, that some registrations are done even earlier than the 90 days.
Oh.
For instance, if it's a transfer of certificate, so the person has a certificate already, and you are transferring to another person. Having gone through the initial processes of these checks and everything being done accordingly, people have got it in six weeks. Some have got it in 1 month.
That's about 1.5 months.
Yeah, 1 month.
But so currently, how many months are we doing for registration?
The last statistics we said 8 months.
8 months?
On the average.
Okay.
But that means some have been done quicker, some have been done later than 8 months. But that's the last statistics that we have for Greater Accra. But I always say that Greater Accra's problem is peculiar because of the pressure, the various processes. The statistics are better in smaller regions, less pressure regions, but we are trying our best to improve.
So you said what factors have accounted for the delays?
Oh yes, so it's people not checking, people bringing documents that were not prepared by the right professionals. You bring some indenture, it looks like a stamp on it, but nobody read it. The terms are all not problematic. The site plan that has been given not been properly done. There were mistakes somewhere. You have to go and do corrections. And a number of things, as you say. So if you get it right at the beginning, you get the professionals involved, you go through the right process.
So it's interesting. People say that when you're going to buy a car, you make time to bring on board a professional, your mechanic, to check the state of the car before you take the car home. You pay for it. But when it comes to land transactions, people do not want to investigate. People do not want to spend time and money doing their due diligence and all that. It's so interesting. And sometimes the land may be so expensive, even more than the cars that we try to buy. Why is it like that? Is it lack of ignorance or what?
I just think that people are just either afraid of professionals and the price. By which they made mention to them. You know, a car, you just walk into a DVLA, you said you check. You know, in some jurisdictions, they limit land transactions to professionals purely.
Yeah.
You will not deal even directly with Lands Commission. You have to go and see some solicitor or a conveyancer and pay him to go through the process of registration.
When you're sure that you're...
Unfortunately, Ghana, we don't have those rules. So
anyone who owns land can
you
sell.
have the liberty
Yeah.
to go ahead, and that's the difficulty. If you use the right professionals, and once again, an individual has the liberty.
So the advice to all of us is that if you get it right from the very onset, you are likely to have your interest registered within the shortest possible time. Yeah, many of the reasons that have been given are the fact that we do not engage the services of professionals in trying to acquire land. We all feel that once you see it, you like it, you go into the transaction, but it's never done that way. So let us all be sure that we are dealing with professionals. We are dealing with people who understand these transactions. We bring them on board. They help us from the preparation of a site plan to conduct your search, the documentation, getting a solicitor to help, and then you go into the court, the High Court, to have it stamped, bringing it to the Lands Commission for your stamp duty, assessment and payment, and finally lodging your documents for registration. And the stamp duty, don't forget, we've been told, is a prerequisite for your registration. Without it, you cannot even register your document. And so, lawyer, he being a lawyer, we cannot let him go without speaking to the Land Act, the act that people say it has become the game changer. Is it really true? Is that really the point, that the Land Act 2020 Act 1036 is a game changer? Are there sessions that we would want to understand? You would want the public to know what provisions are in there for the public. We cannot stay and say that we are ignorant of this act because it's in full force. And so if you do not abreast yourself with this act, then I'm sure you may be found wanting at the end of the day if you engage in anything that would actually not sync well with the act. So lawyer, this one, we want you to educate us on some bits of the Land Act, what it has sought to do, or what at all are we to learn from some various sections of the Act of Provisions.
Okay, so I'll limit it to what would help Greater Accra.
All right.
So I want to start by Section 12, for instance.
Okay.
Which talks about the fact that those who engage in inciting people to what we popularly call landguardism,
Okay.
you are at risk of 5 to 15 years of jail term.
5 to 15 years?
Yes, if you are prosecuted and found guilty. And you know, this is a region that has the prevalence of that.
Yeah.
So a caution to those who engage in it, those who incite people to be engaged or finance it or encourage it, please desist from it. Section 13, around about 18, critically, which talks about customary land secretariats.
Sorry, let me not catch you.
Yes.
I want to understand, you said that for anybody who engages in this act,
Yes.
I am the land guard.
Yes.
Whoever has actually...
So whoever has sent me there, whoever is paying me, whoever contracted me, you get the same sentence as the land guard himself.
Wow. That's quite interesting.
And that is what the law seems to, because they don't go there on their own. They go there by somebody's instructions.
Okay.
And you, the person who sends them there.
But I may be ignorant. I mean, you just...
But that is why you are being advised to seek the right ways to solve your problem, to engage men of strength to go and destroy property under the guise. And it has
some macho men.
You
put them on the land and say, hey,
you may
go
hurt
there.
people, you may kill people, you may do, and all those things will lead you to. So this, because they don't go there on their own.
5 to 15 years.
Yes, and that's a stiff punishment.
Wow.
Section 13 to 18 talks about customary land secretariats generally. And in a region like Greater Accra, where there's pressure on land, if all the land owning groups have their secretariats and can keep records, it will prevent double grants, for instance. It will also help them also keep records.
The double sale of land.
Double sales of land, they can deal with those things. So that's one. I'll talk about Section 186, for instance. 182, which talks about the fact that all those who have big land owning groups should register their interest. Okay. Like I told you in the beginning.
The indeterminate
boundaries. Once we can determine those boundaries and register them, then it reduces the pressure
Oh,
that you may
sometimes
have.
they say that it's too expensive to do so, so they won't even come.
Yes, in
That,
fact,
discourages them
I like
from.
the fact that they think it's too expensive. The Land Act itself now exempted those big transactions from stamp duties.
Oh.
So that was one of the ways to encourage. In fact, we're even going to exempt them from other things, but the law limited it to the stamp duty. So the exemption is supposed to encourage.
Then this is good news.
Yes, it's to encourage land owning groups to come for registration. Then state land, for instance, Greater Accra has quite a number of state lands, and even where state has not used it for the purpose for which it acquired it for, people have the pension of jumping onto it and building on it. It's a risk. If you read the act, you acquire no interest if it's state land. You also can be eligible to prosecution from 1 to 7 years, I think. And then don't go jump on state land and claim that it is not used for the purpose. So that's reverted. That's a big caution.
For anyone who encroaches.
Encroaches, yes, because you are seen as stealing state land.
Hey, that's quite serious.
Yes.
But there are people who are actually occupying lands they didn't have any knowledge about later.
I disagreed. I disagree, and I disagree strongly.
Really?
Before you entered, if you followed what we started with, which is the fact that you have to do a search, you would have known. You just don't go and occupy a land.
So for the poor man who, let's say, didn't know,
Yes.
and later ran to the Lands Commission, conducted a search, and it revealed that the land he's occupying is actually a state land.
So it depends. If the policy of the state concerning that particular parcel of land is to regularize, what we call is to make sure that you get the right documentation covering the land.
Oh, okay.
The Lands Commission can go to the process of regularization.
So in that case, that poor man can write to the Lands Commission.
So he's applying with the document that some chief gave to him, thinking that it is his.
Because I've seen a number of cases like that.
And then you come and regularize. That's if the state policy is to regularize in that area. In some areas, the state's direction is no regularization in that area.
Then what becomes of the occupant?
So you are a candidate for demolition when the government decides
to... that's another area I would want to delve in maybe some other time.
Yes, but we know in Accra, we have examples
it's so
of
heartbreaking.
The area. I always say that those of us who manage, in Ghana, we are sympathetic with the lawbreakers, sometimes even than the law.
Yeah.
But if you were careful in the beginning, you would not go. Because I've seen people blatantly building on state land. Nothing will happen. Oh, it's a buying.
I cannot buy it.
It will never happen. But when the government needs it, the government will take steps. And when it takes steps, it will affect your interests. For me, as you said, land is something we all may acquire maybe once in our lifetime. Very few would acquire more than once in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you are going to buy it, you should have a lot of caution. You can see it, you can love it, but if you do the searches and it doesn't look good, walk away. Don't fall in love with it before you come and do your searches.
Wow. Very, very insightful discussion here. And I must say that we are learning a lot on this show. And so keep your questions coming through. I'm here with lawyer Timothy Anyidoho. And so he will find answers for all your questions. Trust me, he is a renowned land administration officer. He understands his work and can speak to all the issues. So we're expecting your questions to come through. Now, the caution is that, basically what you need to do is to run a search before you buy any land. As the layman would say, to buy a land, I've been told that you can't buy land. Is that right?
So what they are trying to say is that what you are buying is the interest in the land.
The interest in the land.
For a number of years.
But can one buy land in perpetuity forever?
Well,
when I go into the transaction, I can have it forever. It becomes mine.
Until the passage of the Act 1036, for family land, you could get it forever.
Family land.
Family land.
Okay. If I'm getting it from any family.
It could have been conveyances, which would be free forever.
Okay.
But the law now, by section 9, outlaws grants such as that.
Okay.
So now you can only get for a leasehold term, which is for a number of years.
A number of years.
For stool land, that has been the position since.
Okay.
So that one has always been the fact that, because the idea is that the land is for generations yet unborn.
Yeah.
So you give it to somebody for a number of years so that the others can also get their fruits.
Sure.
If you give it to somebody perpetually, that means the family has lost that land. So you have a family in name, but its land will now be owned by other individuals.
Okay.
And that is what the law sought to cure.
Yeah, very interesting discussions indeed. And so I think we would want to take his last words before he takes leave of us. So if you have any other thing you want to mention to them in a form of advice or anything you want to speak to, lawyer, tell us before you go.
Well, I want to say for those customary landowners of land in Greater Accra, my friends, my brothers, it's a privilege that Greater Accra is the capital city, and I always tell those who were born on land here, if the capital city were not here, the price of land will not be as high as it is. Because of the primacy of Greater Accra, my advice to those who own land in the Greater Accra, clans, families, tools, is that they should be able to have their customary land secretariats and manage the land well. The land is their gold. Lands Commission is ever ready to assist them in putting the structures in that will help them to be able to manage their land well. They should see Lands Commission as a partner in land administration, not an enemy or someone who is fighting them, but as a partner in their land management. And our doors are opened to them. I've noticed that when you talk to particular land owning groups, they understand their land so well. But when you start asking them for the right documentation covering it, then it goes haywire. So please, and for those who are investors here, purchasers of land in Greater Accra, those who come to Accra to wait, please, land in Accra is pricey. Make sure that before you invest your money in it, make sure that you've done the right checks. You are sure you are dealing with the right person before you start giving money up. Otherwise, you give money up, you lose your money, or you lose the land, and in the end, you become frustrated. But please, invest with caution in Greater Accra. Don't just take people's words for it. Make sure that you run the right searches before you purchase.
Wow, very good. Let me not forget this. Do you do all that alone, or the other divisions at the land?
So as I said in the beginning, the Greater Accra Regional Lands Officer is just like a conductor of a choir. So we have 4 divisions: the Public Invested Land Division, headed by Mr. Pepra, Mr. Bediabo, heading the Survey and Mapping Division. We have Land Registration Division, where lawyer Anyidoho heads, and we have Samuel Ofoy for Land Valuation Division. That's primarily the management team that we have for Greater Accra at the region, and the Regional Lands Officer is just conducting the 4 divisions.
What shall we say? I want to say a very big thank you to you, lawyer, for making time for us to, delve into serious conversations of this nature. In fact, land is all we have, and so the caution has been thrown out to you that before you invest, make sure you're doing the right thing. Make sure you are dealing with the rightful owner. Make sure you are dealing with professionals. Avoid dealing with quacks. If you do not want to throw your money away, that is an important advice that has been given to you. And so we say thank you to surveyor lawyer Timothy Anyidoho, who is the acting regional lands officer for Greater Accra region. It's been so insightful. We may want to invite him some other time when the questions come up. I know you have a lot on your mind. As for land issues, wherever we go, I know you were embarking on serious sensitization.
Yes.
So
you are conducting us for the basic sensitization. So I say we are conducting to churches, markets, whichever place that we'll find.
So on behalf of management, we want to say thank you to all of you. We thank you so much, management, for this initiative that the program seeks to educate. Basically seeks to throw more light on the many land issues we have in the country, and is doing so well with the kind support of our other staff, members of staff, for the communications crew. We thank you so much. The production team, Mariam, your good self, Obis, and to you, Desmond, to video director Dora Mumuni, and to all of you who are playing a pivotal role in making sure that this show becomes successful. Thank you so very much. So we'll meet you same time next week for another edition when we digest all the issues on land administration in the country. My name is Eunice Opoku. Catch you same time next week. And thank you.